Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. The sun is kind of bright. The other day I produced a post for you and I called it The Real Deal. The Real Deal. I'm sure that when I use a subject matter like that, some people might take an offense to that. The real deal, especially when you're talking about an individual as being the real deal. When you talk about the real deal, even the person who's least to understand it will gather a significance about what it's about. The real deal. It's not fake, it's not phony. What you get is what you get, and it's not ashamed of it. It stands up for what it is. Well, being the real deal, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying to you, the American people, wherever you are, if you're going to listen to somebody, make sure that you got an understanding, or best understanding that you can get of that person. Because people are not genuinely good. They may be born that way, but we come into a world that teaches us different. Talk is cheap. The walk is the real deal. For instance, let me give you a quick education. As we grow up as children, most of us really don't know what love is. If you watch television, you can see animals on television. More animals know what love is than people. And people genuinely have a little bit more affection for animals, or as much affection for animals as they do for the people that they do genuinely care about. Which basically means that they care more about their animals than they do most people. Believe that. But I'm saying this to say that we're talking about love. People really don't know what love is. And I'm speaking from my own understanding, and those that are around me and all that I can see don't know what love is. For instance, growing up as a child, loved was something that we heard, a word, and then we saw something on television if you were born in a time that they had televisions, or something that they gave the impression of if you heard it on radio if you were born before the television. And it kind of connected one with the other to make you associate that as being a form of love. And when you really try to measure your ability to understand love, you translate it into having sex. So when you're young, love is having sex. I mean, love is supposed to be the greatest thing. What you gonna find greater than an orgasm? Well, there might be many things, but it ranks up there with them. And so it has nothing to do with raise responsibility. Let's put it there. It doesn't have anything to do with responsibility. It has nothing to do with if a girl gets pregnant. We're hoping that the boys are hoping that she doesn't. And some boys hope if she gets pregnant, if you got money, that she get an abortion. And if you can't, then it depends now what kind of status you have in life about what's going to happen. If you got the wherewithal, girl has to have the baby, you a supporter. Support the baby as a kid. If you don't have that access, you don't do it. You're not being mean. You're not being cruel. You can't do it because you don't have it. Somebody say, well, you got pregnant, you got having sex. Well, that was life. That's what you knew. So what you're talking about is what the world has created in that moment of time, in that space of time, in that generation of time, wherever. This is what you've taught. And that is a part of that foundation that brings us into the next level of life. That brings us through and takes us through all of the things that we have to go through in life. And we end up, my friends, not really ever knowing what love is. Not the kind of love that's true love. We usually translate love into what you can do for me and what I can do for you, and as soon as I find out you can't do these things, you find out that love that you had was nothing. Nothing. It wasn't a thing. Not one dead blasted thing. As spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people, it bothers me that this is America. And I say I don't want it now. Am I any better than I was as a child, as I was as a teenager? Has my mind really changed? Well, I am that same person. It's just that something else has changed. I still might not know what love is, but I know what pain is. I might not know what too much joy is, but I know what suffering is. So I'm standing up against pain. I'm standing up against suffering. And if it means life, if it means love, then that's just a byproduct. I'm standing up against pain. I'm standing up against suffering. I'm standing up for what I've seen people do to one another. Yeah, I've been in the midst of all of it. The only thing I can say that I'm really glad of is that I haven't really, as far as I know, taken a life. But I'm not going to brag or boast. Because put in a situation like others have been, I might have. So I'm not going to say that wasn't me. I just say I haven't. In America, we have the greatest divide. The greatest divide. Some want life and some want death. To those that want life, they mean basically that certain things are available to you and that you get a chance to grow, develop, experience, make possible changes and make the changes. It might not be the best, but it's better than yesterday. And sometimes you might have to take a step back, but not go back too far. That's what you translate as life. And there are the others who want death. That when they say death, that means they want themselves and what they want, and everything else they are willing to kill and destroy. Willing to kill and destroy. And this is when you can tell them by their actions. What do? They make policies that discriminate. They make policies that causes pain and suffering to other people. And not only do they make policies, they are willing to showboat between the public, before the public, about what they're willing to do. They're willing to take their guns anywhere they go and dare you to say something about it. They're willing to take their arms of war and bring it on the streets and put it right there and arm everyone that they agree should be armed. And those are the ones that agree with the policies of death. Back in the Western days, when you can see people down the street, you just call them out and shoot, made the fastest win. Well, we know back in those days, they began to see that that was detrimental to the success of life, and so they tried to make some rules and regulations. Apparently, the dirtiness, the heartlessness, the carelessness still remained in people, but by virtue of the law, which meant that if you did something outside of this law, we, the people, have decided that we would take your life. And some people, well, didn't want to give it up that easy, so they thought about other ways to cause pain. Thought about other ways to cause suffering. You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's not something that you can say it was Republicans. You cannot just say it was Democrats. The thing of it, it's been existing in our entire lives under the administration of a government headed by Republicans and Democrats. And in that, the pain and suffering has been constant. You always got the poor who've been robbed by a system that does not accommodate their being taken care of and blessed. And yet we say that the earth is hell. People talk about heaven and hell. Talk about dying, going someplace to heaven or hell. That sounds like one of the biggest tricks. They have put what might be, or what could be, or may never be, before and above what is. I mean, the future might not come, which might be the future. But right now is. So what is the most important thing? Is it right now or tomorrow? What is most important? Life right now or spirit later? That sounds like a trick. Because I have to believe that if life is good tomorrow, it got to be good today. I got to believe that if spirit is good tomorrow, it has to be good today. Because if it's not good today, there will probably be no tomorrow. Don't convince me that I got to suffer spiritually today to enjoy a spirit tomorrow. Ooh-wee. That sounds like a big con game. That sounds like a Trump. That sounds like Donald Trump talking. And when I mention that name, let me explain to you why. I remember, again, as a teenager, I saw a movie called Rosemary's Baby. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that title, that subject, Rosemary's Baby. For those of you who are not, it basically has to do with evil. It has to do with those despicable things of life. It has to do with demonic forces coming from wherever they come from and injecting themselves in the lives of people to the degree that it destroys them. And in this particular case, became the father of a baby born to Rosemary. Someone to come into the world, to be an introduction into the world, to spring up amongst we the people, wherever culture we have, whatever nature we are, and change us and make us be. Now, who amongst us in America, we've heard about Hitler, we've heard about Mussolini and many others, Pol Pot and others, but who in the United States of America? We've done some crazy things. We've Bull Connor, we had George Wallace, we had a lot of them, but we never had a Donald Trump that people just latch on to, that people could receive a statement and hear it as a lie the next day, and they will support the lie. It doesn't matter, it could be wrong, and then they justify it by saying alternative truths. Alternative truths. That means, ladies and gentlemen, is that my way is just as good as your way. That's what alternative truth means. My way is as good as your way. Now, the determining factor, which is really, really true, is that who survives? Who is and what is the one that moves the foundation? Is it the so-called truth or the alternative truth? Well, the so-called truth have stood for quite some time in the midst of lies. But now we're dealing with alternative truths, and we're seeing it sweep across America. We're seeing it sweep to the point that they're willing, the people who you elected to put in office to protect you, are willing to destroy you, using your money to do it. Using everything that you have instituted to protect you, they're taking it to destroy you. I don't want this to get too long because I know you won't pay any attention to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end that right here. And the subject matter is, what's the subject? The real deal? Nah. The real deal too. I'm going to continue this, but at a different part. Thank you so very much for giving me this much of your time. Until next, this is Eddie Marcus. Say goodbye for now.